All right, folks, thanks for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Vanessa Rufus, and over the next couple of hours, we'll be together talking about some of the latest breaking news. We'll be looking at the live raw feeds and getting you big updates. Of course, we want to talk here about a big story for us as far as the wildfire situation goes in the Carolinas. We did get a new update from the U.S. Forest Service just about an hour ago on the Bee Rock Creek fire. For folks who are just joining us or coming into the situation, don't know too much about this, this has been burning for a couple of days now in McDowell County, and it has grown pretty substantially. It looks like we're about up to 2,000 acres or so, 2,085 acres to be more specific, according to the last update. Good news is 50% containment, and we did get some rain in our area today, which is certainly well needed for not even just the wildfire situation, but I know folks across the area have been pretty desperate for rain as far as their lawns and their plants and such, so this will be really great. We're hearing here alongside these new images that the U.S. Forest Service released tonight, some of the efforts that they've been working on lately. So in advance of the rain, they tell us that they had some time to work on fire lines. They went back and they kind of fixed the areas that they ended up, they said, disturbing because of the wildfire suppression operations that they were taking. So we know in some cases they were digging out material, they were trying to build fire lines, they might have been clearing debris. Essentially, they tried to return them as much as possible to a natural state, which is good for erosion, they say. So we're seeing here some of that work there, the crews pulling back the material that had been dug out for those fire lines. This will try to direct runoff from the exposed soil, and so they're also scattering the logs and the branches, as you see here with some of these images, and really just kind of lays the groundwork for this area to recover. We obviously talked a lot about debris being an issue in this area anyways. It's an area that's been hard hit by Helene, and so there's a lot of debris out here to begin with. Some of that was fueling the fires, in fact, and so they're just really trying to set up this area for success now going forward so that it could start to recover once again. So we'll continue to keep you posted on how that fire is going. And of course, weather impacts, we'll be watching those too, because we want to see how the fire danger looks in the days to come. As we mentioned, we did get some rain, so that's great. And we invite you to keep it here on WCNC Plus. As coming up on the 11 o'clock news here, you'll be able to stream us and get updates from Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich, not only on the impacts to you, but also impacts to the wildfire affected areas. Another big topic for us this evening, CMS. So Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools in the process right now of discussing its budget for the upcoming school year, and we hear that they are going to be taking a vote at some point tonight. So this is proposed to be here $1.95 billion. This is a slight increase from the year before. It's a little less than a 1% increase. However, the district says some things of note. This is the first budget without ESSER funds, which you know that was the COVID rescue funding that was supposed to help keep learning intact, keep staffing intact and such. So the district said that it lost $190 million of ESSER. It did not lay off any employees, the district says. So they'll be talking about how they're going to try to do more with less funding in some ways, but we do know pay raises are going to be here in this proposal. There's also a lot of other investments on learning systems and also just general repairs and such for buildings. So if you want to learn more, by the way, we do have a full breakdown on our website, WCNC.com. It goes, category by category, listing the amount proposed for each specific effort. We have right now that meeting underway, so we can take you there live right now, and we'll listen in. Once again, anything big and breaking, we'll take you straight there here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Senator Rand Paul debates some students. I'm excited to hear what he's going to have to
Math 1 Excellence Bonus Pay for Performance.
Thank you, Dr. Daniels, and good evening. The Math 1 Excellence Bonus will compensate our amazing teachers for not just the work they're doing directly with students, but also taking on the challenge of growing our students towards mastery of Math 1 from the non-proficient to college and career ready, which is our goal. in just one course, but also the additional work they do or allow our school district to learn from their practices so that we can replicate these successful practices across our school district to ensure we impact more students. These teachers will do this work in our Title I schools that are listed here. So as we continue to talk about our goal-aligned district initiative, Math One Excellence Bonus Pay for Performance, being mindful that our students are expected to take 4 math courses before they graduate from high school. The impact that this course will have on their success to complete high school strong with math is very important when they begin with Math One. So Jack Welch said, an organization's ability to learn and translate that learning into action rapidly is the ultimate advantage. As we head into the 24-25 school year, we are engaging in systems thinking centered on our theory of change. Ms. Thompson has talked about that quite frequently. We will keep our foot on the gas, continuing the goal-aligned systems and processes that are currently producing the improved results we are currently experiencing. And we will set up opportunities to try new and innovative things that will propel us to impact student outcomes even faster, and we will learn from them. On April the 8th, at our Board of Education meeting, we recognized 49 students. This is one of the students shown here with her principal. This student achieved amazing growth in Math 1 in the first semester of this school year, ultimately achieving college and career readiness on the end of course assessment. This did not happen by accident. Teachers that are highly skilled created the conditions for that learning to happen. We want to learn from these amazing teachers so that the strategies that they are currently using can be replicated across the district to impact all of our Math 1 students, and even augmented across our district, impacting the outcomes, again, for all of our students so they can be successful for all 4 years in math. This work matters greatly. Goal 3 is centered around Math 1. It requires that we increase the number and percentage of students enrolled in Math 1 high school course to 57% college and career ready by June of 2029. 57% by June of 2029. That's a great accomplishment for the district, but it will take a lot of work to get there. It is important as we look back at our 23-24 targets, which was 32%, our actual performance was 28%. We did not reach our target. This year, our target is 37%. Our projection is currently 31%. While this demonstrates progress over last year's actual performance, we will have to make Herculean growth in math to achieve college and career readiness, in essence. What is required to accelerate students' growth in math in a short amount of time is critical. If we know what it takes, we are better equipped to know how to resource it and how to scale across our district. So not just any teacher qualifies for this opportunity. Teachers engaging in this groundbreaking work must meet the eligibility requirements shown on this slide. So a bachelor's degree in mathematics, education, or related field, 4 years or more of teaching experience, educator valued added assessment system, which we call EVAS, growth documentation in that area of 1.5 or more from the past 3 years, which is significant. Also on their NESAs, which we call NC Educator Effectiveness System, documentation of accomplished or higher in standards 1 and 4, and then documentation of positive outcomes for the past 2 years in NESAs. So as we look at this data, teachers selected for this work will receive an initial stipend of $2,250 for summer curriculum development for the coming school year. This will help them be prepared and have time to work and unpack the resources and continue to prepare for the challenge ahead of them. All other bonus awards are based on student performance. The greater the performance of students, the higher the compensation. The maximum amount a teacher could receive is $15,250, but this is only guaranteed if a teacher student achieves the maximum amount of growth shown on this slide. So as we look at this investment of federal funds potentially to compensate 32 teachers in our district, they would instruct.
All right, folks, as we continue to listen live here on the CMS meeting discussing the budget proposal for next school year, we want to draw your attention to the bottom right corner of your screen where we're looking at some live images here of Yale. This is a political union here that has put together this debate that is going to include Senator Rand Paul tonight. So this is set to get underway shortly, and over the last couple minutes we've been seeing students filing in. So we'll monitor this. If anything interesting happens, of course, we'll bring this in full and we'll let you listen in live here on Live Impact News.
Thank you, Dr. Balknight. The next slide provides an overview of Title II, Supporting Effective Teachers and School Leaders. For the 2025-26 school year, Title II is estimated at $5.4 million. Title II supports districts with recruitment, talent development, and retaining effective teachers and school leaders. The proposed plan includes the following: $1.5 million to continue supporting the CMS Teaching Residency Program that provides a pathway to earning a teaching license. $1.1 million to support beginning teachers, as this team welcomes new teachers to CMS, providing professional development, coaching, and mentoring. $1.2 million is utilized to strengthen educational leadership through school leadership pipelines, professional development, and the AP Academy. $864,798 is focused on ELA and math instruction. Finally, Title II funding is also allocated to support private schools that opt into receiving services. As it relates to the impact of Title II, CMS uses these funds in ways to recruit, retain, and develop the talent of our teachers and principals. These programs ensure high-quality outcomes. Our teacher residency program is one of the top programs for training and supporting new teachers. This year, we have 270 teachers in the pipeline, and the program continues to help fill teacher vacancies each year. Currently, we have retained 95% of beginning teachers in CMS for the 2024-25 school year. In reference to the impact of Title II around school leadership, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools recognizes that strong school leadership is essential to student success. To ensure we cultivate and support highly effective principals, the Office of Educational Leadership partners with local.
All right, everyone, we'll continue to monitor both of these feeds. In the background, we have the CMS budget discussion. We're expecting a vote tonight on this roughly $2 billion budget for next year. We also have this debate that is almost getting underway, but we still have folks falling into the room there at Yale. This is where we are expecting Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky to participate in a debate. Interesting concept here. Be interested to see who he's debating. Sounds like it might be students there with the political union at Yale, but we will watch that. If things start to get interesting, we'll bring you over there. But meantime, I want to take you to an update that we just got from the State Department today. We want to take you to Tammy Bruce, the spokesperson for the State Department, talking about some restructuring that this department is about to undergo, and it sounds like there could be some budgetary cuts as well. So let's listen in now, and once again, anything big and breaking, particularly that debate there at Yale that we're watching, we'll bring you back.
Everybody. Hello, sir. Oh, thank you, ma'am. All right. Welcome aboard, everyone. Thank you for being here. I know a few people are doing some hits, so we might have some people coming in. Appreciate again you being here. All right. An announcement, I think rather important one for certainly all of you here and everyone watching at home, and certainly everyone here at the State Department. Welcome aboard. Today, under President Trump's leadership and at the direction of Secretary Rubio, we are reversing decades of bloat and bureaucracy at the State Department. The Secretary announced a reorganization plan to build an America First State Department to meet the challenges of a new era. He has issued the following statement on the plan, which you can get at State Department DEPT, or how is it, .gov? State.gov. State.gov. is where you can get this statement and links to other information on what we're about to discuss. We are facing tremendous challenges across the globe to deliver on President Trump's America First foreign policy. We must make the State Department great again. In its current form, the department is bloated, bureaucratic, and unable to perform its essential diplomatic mission in this new era of great power competition. Over the past 15 years, the department's footprint has had unprecedented growth and costs have soared. But far from seeing a return to investment, taxpayers have seen less effective and less efficient diplomacy. The sprawling bureaucracy created a system more beholden to radical political ideology than advancing America's core national interests. That is why today Secretary Rubio is announcing a comprehensive reorganization plan that will bring the department into the 21st century. This approach will empower the department from the ground up, from the bureaus to the embassies. Region-specific functions will be consolidated to increase functionality, redundant offices will be removed, and non-statutory programs that are misaligned with America's core national interests will cease to exist. Under President Trump's leadership, we have a commander-in-chief committed to putting America and Americans first. As his Secretary of State, Secretary Rubio, announces that he is in fact confident a reformed State Department will meet the moment and help make our country great once again. So the bottom line here is that these sweeping changes will empower our talented diplomats to put America and Americans first. It is also, I will remind, for those of you who are in the bullpen and those watching at home, as I've mentioned before, there's a number of journalists and organizations that are a member of our bullpen. They're people who cover the State Department and work here in the building. And we had a discussion earlier today with some more background on this, that also for State Department personnel, everyone in the building will be receiving, of course, this statement. And there's an opinion piece that is available from the Secretary at the new State Department Substack link. And that is statedept.substack.com. Is that it? Go there, and it will ask if you want to subscribe. You don't have to. You can just click on the title, and you'll get additional commentary from the Secretary in this regard. Also, for everyone in this building, there is additional information. There is a fact sheet. There are frequently asked questions. There's an additional statement from the Deputy Secretary Landau, so you will be able to see that as well. And as a reminder again, because I know there's been a lot of fake news out there, this is a reorganization plan. It is not something where people are being fired today. They're not, no one's going to be walking out of the building. It's not that kind of a dynamic. It is a roadmap. It's a plan. It is something that there's been a congressional notice that has been sent. And so the steps and the procedures that happen through the government are also taking place at this point as well. And at this stage, I will open it up for questions on this issue. Yeah, yes?
Sure.
Sean?
Thanks. If you don't mind, just obviously lots of questions. Just to make sure we get
course.
to it. The Russians are saying that Special Envoy Witkoff is coming back.
All right, so we're doing that's a different issue. Let's stick with this. It's interesting. If none of you have any questions about this.
No, we certainly have questions.
Yeah. So I mean questions about this.
All right, folks, we are going to pause for a moment here with this State Department briefing and turn to something that we're seeing live right now on our feeds. This is coming to us from Basile, Louisiana. We're going to turn our attention to a delegation of lawmakers coming from Louisiana, Mississippi, and Massachusetts, apparently visiting ICE facilities there to see how things are going, and also we're seeing that at least one of them was trying to meet with somebody who's being detained there right now, and they are giving an update. So let's move now over to this live update. Once again, this is Louisiana lawmakers commenting on ICE facilities there.
Why she's here. She was going through the process to become a citizen. She's been here for 17 years. Her husband is a citizen. Her children, her 3 children, are citizens. She volunteers at the public school that her children attend. She went in for her routine checkup with ICE and never made it home. That's tragic. Due process was clearly denied. An explanation to her family denied. She went for a period where she couldn't talk to a lawyer. This is America. This is America. This is not some third world country. This is not some communist state. And so our presence here today is to let Ms. Britta and her family and all the others that are out there, that there are some people that are fighting for justice, that are fighting for what's right. And we're not going to back down. Listen, it doesn't matter. We may be outvoted in Congress, but we will never be outvoiced. And we will continue to fight for Ms. Britta and everybody else, and anyone else that may be in the eye of the target for having the audacity to want to exercise free speech.
I have a question with AIDS. Can you talk to the condition of the facilities? Can you describe what you saw?
You know, the conditions of from a visual standpoint, they were clean. Although we were told that they did some cleaning up today, the facilities appeared to our naked eye to be clean, albeit chilly. Many of the detainees complained of it being extremely cold, which deprived them of sleep, and having the ability to have multiple blankets. Although we were told they can get them, the detainees told us repeatedly that they were denied. So the physical conditions appear to be fine. The temperature is not fine, and of course we don't know what it looked like before a visit or what it will look like after.
Can you describe a day, apologies, Katie Royce with CBS News. Could you describe a day in the life for these detainees here?
They spend a inordinate amount of time in tears. They were shaken. They were visibly upset and afraid. They have very small cots that are very uncomfortable, very stiff. Many of them complained of back pain since being here. They get an hour or two outside to recreate and enjoy fresh air, but then they're back inside. Many of them have complained about the food not being of the nutritional value that they would prefer, that there were no fresh fruits, very little lettuce. Even those that were vegetarian, it was very basic.
We understand Jasmine, can confirm where the night is, that she may be pregnant in the facility. I don't know if anyone confirm where the night is, and tell us a little bit about her case and her situation.
She appears to be, she's 6 months pregnant. Yes, she's absolutely 6 months pregnant. She came here when she was 4 months pregnant. It's been a while since she's been able to see a physician, but yes, she is indeed pregnant, and as we understand, we didn't see other people, but we were told by many of the detainees that there are quite a few pregnant women in this facility.
I have a question regarding that. I'm Bobby Mizik from Verity News. Are they complaining about issues with their pregnancies? Have people told you of any reports of miscarriages or other complications with their pregnancies?
Sure. First, I just want to, again, thank Congressman Carter for convening us, and I want to just say I hope you all know how fortunate you are to have him. Grateful for his leadership and the compassion that he demonstrated in there. It meant a great deal to everyone today. Yes, I remain very concerned about whether or not people are receiving adequate medical attention and care for a range of issues. Everything from nagging and persistent coughs that will not go away. People with severe asthma, like Rumeysa Ozturk, who has suffered multiple asthma attacks and struggled to get the medication that she needed because she was denied due process. They stole her away from her community without the 2 medications that she uses daily. Many of the women spoke about lumps in their breasts and abnormalities and reproductive concerns and an inability to see specialists and to get adequate care. The issue around food and nutrition, that was also voiced repeatedly both at GINA and at Bazille. And yes, it is our understanding from our conversations with detainees that there are miscarriages that women have suffered. and with Yasmin in particular, that she almost lost her baby twice.
We were also told, to follow up on that, we were told by officials inside that pregnant women were not kept for a very long time, that they were in fact released
Once they learned
that they were pregnant. Yasmin is big. It's very clear that she's pregnant. We were told that in this very facility that there are others who are likewise pregnant and visibly pregnant. So there's a disconnect between what we saw and what we were told. And it's important, and I want to say this also because we've mentioned the names of 4 individuals, but every single individual in both of these facilities matter. And our presence here, while there have been those that have been high profile and you know their names, there are many that we may never know their names, but they're just as important. And we're going to fight for all of them. We're going to fight for fairness, justice, and the democratic way of a democracy that's run by the people.
The last thing I just want to say is just that the oversight component is so critical here, and I appreciate the ACLU being generous and saying that we've demonstrated some semblance of courage here. We're really just doing our jobs. It's our duty to be here. The courage that these detainees demonstrated and their candor and regarding the conditions here, and they are afraid, and I'm leaving here afraid for them. So it is really important. You know, sunlight is the best disinfectant. We have to continue to shine a light here and to pay attention. I am very fearful for them, and they are very fearful for what will happen to them because they spent time with us today and because of their candor.
Thank you all very much.
Can I just say
Yes,
one time?
absolutely.
Yes. We're here at a prison that makes money on what it can save from not providing for the prisoners who are inside. We were told that not one person in this facility receives the health care which they deserve. We were told that when there's a request for blankets at night when it's cold, that they are not able to receive it. We were told that when they ask for the appropriate food for them because of their medical condition or because of their religion, it is very slow to be delivered by a company which makes money by cutting food, by cutting health services, by cutting the basics of life which every one of these people in their humanity deserves. That's what we heard today at these 2 facilities, for-profit facilities.
Okay, looks like we've gotten a little signal issue with this feed, but it looks like it is kind of organically coming to a conclusion soon. We were just seeing there those lawmakers from various states, including Louisiana, Massachusetts, and Mississippi, who are speaking from Basile, Louisiana, after visiting ICE facility. They talked about, they say some of their concerns with due process here, with how some of these folks are being kept at this detention facility, and it looks like they were able to meet with people who are being detained there, including we're seeing Columbia University graduate Mahmoud Khalil and Rumeysa Ozturk, who's a grad student from Tufts University. Those are a couple of the more higher profile people who were detained and sent to this facility. So we'll continue to keep you posted on that. Meantime, as promised, we did want to take you to the campus of Yale, where the political union there has organized this debate with Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, and Mr. Paul is speaking now, so let's listen in for a bit.
First time this has ever happened. But the problem, the main thing he had to address was not Republicans versus Democrats or Federalists. The main problem he had was John Randolph of Roanoke had 2 big hounds on the floor of the Congress. And he wouldn't leave. The last guy that tried to make him take the hounds off the floor, he beat him senseless with his cane. This was a problem. This was not exactly kumbaya. This was a real problem. But Henry Clay said, you know, we're not going to have any of that. He told the Sergeant-at-Arms, who is armed, by the way, he told the Sergeant-at-Arms, get rid of the dogs. They took them out. So that day, Henry Clay is in the speaker's chair. He's coming out. John Randolph, a Roanoke's all bowed up outside the doors. Henry Clay comes through the door, and John Randolph, a Roanoke, punches him in the chest and said, "I never sidestep a skunk." Henry Clay breezed past him and said, "I always do." Oh, that was a better joke than that story. But it didn't end there. They hated each other. They hated each other for many reasons. Clay was a big tariff guy. This is where I'm going.
Quickly here, we want to pivot to a breaking feed just coming into our newsroom here, our Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We talked about the verdict just reached in the Lori Vallow Daybell trial, a guilty verdict. It sounds like we've got some reflections right now from the family.
I had a little concern, but when it came back so quick, I pretty much knew that it was done. Nate, so.
What did you think of her demeanor during trial?
I thought she was, kind of a smarty pants, you know, not real, I don't know what word I'm looking for. I know which one I would use.
Just trying to be nice.
Right. I know which one I would use, but, so, anyway.
What did you think of her lawyering skills?
I thought she sucked.
You think she did herself any favors by being her own attorney?
Probably not. I'm sure the first day into the trial, she wished she would have had an attorney.
You think?
A real attorney, right.
Did you look at her when the verdict was read?
I could see the back of her head.
And what was there? Did you have any reaction? Did she have any reaction?
I couldn't see, but she didn't shake her head or that I saw. So.
Hey, what did you think looking at her?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Come on, Kay, your turn.
I just saw the back of her head too. I couldn't see anything, and she didn't. A lot of times during court, she'd shake her head no when she didn't agree with something being said, or she would just shake her head no, and she didn't shake her head no. So, I guess that means she really did do it.
She seemed to,
Oh, okay.
Kay,
Sorry.
She seemed to really have a visceral reaction to you.
That's what I heard.
And when you were on the stand, what was that moment like for you?
I didn't know that she was that shaken by me being there. And then when I got off the stand, I really didn't even know what I said. And then once Jerry and my sister Susan and our friend Laura Ferris and who else was right there? And Colby was right there. And they were like, "You did so good." She was shaking like a leaf when you, and I was like, "What? No way." And it was, the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, okay, that's all I needed to know. That made my day. That of all the people she should be shaken for, and she was shaking about me, good. I was very pleased.
When the verdict was read as guilty.
What
did you feel?
Oh, just 6 years of walking the pits of hell every day, and about halfway through, I realized, okay, I'm gonna make it through. But it was a long time.
Elation.
It was a long time before I got to that point, but it's still difficult, but it's okay. I'm ready to move on. It's time. We've got a 10-year-old granddaughter we're raising now, and I've got my hands full, and I'm real happy to be being her grandma.
Does it feel real after 6 long years of walking from hell, as you mentioned?
Yes, it feels real, because for about 3 years I didn't feel anything. I was totally just didn't feel anything, numb. Then I started
feeling like justice for Charles.
Yes, and this the order in which it's happened. You know, this was the first incident, the first murder, and then everything up in Idaho, and then so. Charles would have wanted, take care of Tammy and the kids first, and get to me when they're ready. And so he would have been. He's fine. He's fine, and I know that he's pleased with us. And excuse me, there's a vibe. I know he's pleased with us, and I feel good.
We had a juror tell us that your testimony stuck with them, and they even saw you after and felt like there was justice for your brother. What does that mean to hear that?
Great. Whatever I said, I struck a chord, and that's what I wanted to do. That's what I was trying to do, and I'm grateful. I mean, hey, the Lord gave us. This was thrust upon us, and our lives just went into like a tornado for a long time, and then getting to say things in the first 2 trials, and then getting to speak about Charles finally, because he's been so silent. I mean, it's just been silent where he's at. I know people thought we forgot about him, and no way, you know. And but law enforcement never stopped. Like Lori said, they didn't stop, because I was right there behind with law enforcement here in Arizona, talking and saying, "What's going on now? Tell me." You know, I was in contact with them nonstop, so I knew at some point, you know, it was going to happen, and then all the other stuff, and you know, I'm just glad we got to. I'm just glad this is done. Now we just have to get justice for Brandon, and I will be back. I can't stay the whole time for his, but I will stay as long as I can, kind of more towards the end of it, I guess, and because then it will truly be over. I say I've still got a little bit left before I can close my book, but when that's over, then I can close my book.
And Kay, I don't know if you noticed, I saw 2 jurors look at you as they were walking out. Did you notice that at all?
No, I didn't. I watched them walk in, because I know that if they look at you when they're walking in, that's a good sign. And nobody looked at me, but I didn't see, so I didn't watch them walk out. I didn't think to look. So
What'd you think
good.
when Lori raised aggravation? What'd you think?
I really couldn't hear her, because you know that baby talk she does, that baby voice.
Yep.
She needs to lose that, man. But I hope she grows up in prison and learns how to talk like a woman, you know, and not a baby. But anyway.
One of the jurors, the woman with the long hair, she said that she really just wanted to give you a hug. She's like, you know, afterwards, I really just wanted to give her a hug. Just
You know, in Idaho, all the jurors I've met from up there, from both trials there, that was the one thing they were like, I just wanted to hug you. I just wanted to hug you. So I hope I get to meet her. I hope she reaches out to me. Nate, if anybody calls you, give them my number, and just make sure they're a real juror. And yeah, I want to talk to them. Absolutely.
I was gonna say, Kay, I'm wondering if there's anything you'd say to Lori at this point.
We got you, and you're not the smartest person in the room, and now it's time for you just to hide away, and well, after Brandon's trial, but you can just hide away, and everybody's going to forget about you. We'll be on our way through our life, and she'll be rotting in prison where she deserves to be.
And like Charles always used to say, love always wins.
Yeah,
So.
and oh yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah, love always wins was Charles's thing, and yeah, so it does.
She described this as a family tragedy.
That is absurd. That was.
When you heard that mantra over and over again.
And calling Charles my husband, whom she was hated at the time, whom she was ready to kill him. You know, it's like, that just shows you what she's an actress. She turns on this persona and goes with it, and then boom, she turns it off, and then there's the real her, whatever the real her is. I sure never knew her.
Tell us a little bit, just for me, about Charles. You know, let's bring it back to him and his legacy.
Hey, you want to take that one?
I'm sorry, what was that?
If you could just tell us a little bit about Charles and his legacy and how you want us to think about him.
He was my big brother, you know. I followed in his footsteps. I did everything he did. He was only a year and 2 months older than me. So we hung around a lot. We had a lot of the same friends. He was a big influence in my life. And he was just a good dude. He was, all the way from a kid till when she killed him. So, you know.
What did it mean to hug Trina Kay at the end? What did that feel like? To hear the verdict and then give her a hug?
Well, I hugged her and told her I loved her because she did such a great job. And it felt good. It did.
And she did do a great job. And all the detectives and everybody that has worked on this case, from Nicole Bayer to she's our victim advocate, and Trina and Nate Duncan and all the detectives that have come, and even we had a few visitors from Idaho that came, and that was welcome. And I got a thank you from, not a thank you, I got a congratulations from Rob Wood, from the prosecutor in Idaho a while ago. And we have gained, we lost some dear family. We lost a lot, but we have gained family as well. So, you know, there's the silver lining. And even in the worst times of your life, there is something good there. You just take sometimes a little while to find it. But y'all, we're dying here.
And so,
Susan, do you want
Lauren?
to say anything? No, she doesn't want to.
And as a parting shot, they got the bitch again. Thanks, y'all.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, guys.
All right, folks, just a reminder here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, these are raw, unedited feeds. So in some situations, like you heard there, the language can be a little bit different than what you would see on a TV broadcast. But once again, we are not in control of the feeds other than just bringing them in. What you were hearing right there was a response from the family, it sounds like, of Charles Vallow on this guilty verdict that just came down just a little while ago this evening in the Lori Vallow Daybell case, convicted today of conspiring to kill her fourth husband, Charles Vallow. And keep in mind, she's been called the Doomsday Mom. She's already serving a life sentence for the conviction that she got in Idaho in 2023 for killing her two children and her husband's first wife. So as far as sentencing, we'll see that obviously later, but would be tacking on to already a life in prison sentence that she's serving without the possibility of parole. As we learn more in that case, we will certainly bring you there. But we want to get back to this State Department briefing. We were touching on this briefly a little bit earlier here on Live Impact News. So keep in mind, this is spokesperson Tammy Bruce. She has just shared some of the budget cuts that the State Department is about to undergo and some restructuring. So with that context in mind, we'll send you back there to this briefing in progress.
Secretary, in his conversations with the leaders and also our own embassy and consulate staffs, is that you would have donations or funding for a project that the country itself was not interested in or did not want and had other needs, that the embassy staff or the ambassador was never consulted, that the opinions of the people who are working in the country were not consulted. So they would see money going into a nation, as an example, put in to fund something that was even, in some cases, detrimental to the nation that we were working with, or opposed by an ambassador, and yet there was no input and no action. In this particular kind of reorg, it's about consolidating things, right? Weaving certain offices into other bureaus, making a situation smaller, reorganizing it, literally. And in that case, you will see the bureaus, which used to have a lot of power, but had really kind of lost that in a certain way through the giant bureaucracy that became evident through the 70s and 80s and 90s. And that you would have a dynamic now where the intention is, and described in this plan, to have each regional bureau have the element of the USAID that is relevant to that bureau, so that they would be working together, and it would be a coalition, if you will, of ideas and minds and efforts to then also bring in and have the embassies, the ambassadors, and the governments who we're working with having a say in making sure that the money that's donated is relevant to that nation, is relevant to the region. And that's what will be, that's where USAID essentially is going, is into positions where, as I've mentioned to you, as we were doing our review of USAID, is don't mistake a change for being something for indicating something is gone or missing. That it was never about us abandoning our commitment to funding to any kind of life-saving efforts or our work with other nations in assisting them. But it was going to look different, and now it will. But it will not just look different, but it's actually going to be within a functional framework to make sure that any aid that goes out is aid that that we work with the nation on, that we work with the embassies on, and people on the ground with an interest who are stakeholders will have a say in that. I think that that's certainly a much more functional way to move foreign aid through.
But on the employees themselves,
sure.
That were already sort of in limbo in terms of how their jobs were going to change when the department was going to be taking over USAID. Are those employees going to have the opportunities to apply for other positions? How many people?
Well, some will. So again, this is a proposal. This obviously could change. But as you have offices that are cut, or even some bureaus that were set up for a specific situation that end up being cut entirely, that you will have people who then, Foreign Service officers, the career workers, et cetera, being able to apply for something else. So these are, it's a dynamic where you've got a certain number of open seats that exist, and then people who, of course, will then be out of the seat where they were if, in fact, their office is cut or even folded in to another bureau. So these are, again, this is, again, a roadmap, and it's a dynamic, whereas we've said in the past certain dynamics where people, and this is new for me as somebody who's never worked for government, very much in a way like the military, where you can be working for the State Department, working in a specific, let's say, embassy overseas, and then that job ends, and then you come home and you get slotted into a new job. That, I think, for the American people, maybe for large corporations, that makes sense. But that's how it works here, when, of course, that's possible. So that is possible, and we will clearly watch that as it plays out. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Tommy. You said things will look different, and thank you for that response. But I think a lot of people around the world will be wondering what it is, especially perhaps in the Middle East, Africa, what it will actually mean for them on the ground. How will these changes take effect? Will we see offices over there that are being closed, consulates and so on? Can you talk a little bit about what people around the world can actually expect?
Well, I can't speak to, it's a very separate issue, right? This is an organizational roadmap for this department here, right, in Washington, D.C. The arguments about what will occur in other countries, you're talking about embassies and consulates, that's not addressed here. It's not a factor that this reorg doesn't affect them, except, as I've mentioned, is more involvement, right? More direct, person to person.
Okay, we want to turn now here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus to that CMS board meeting that we started you off with, top of the hour. Looks like we have Superintendent Crystal Hill explaining now her budget proposal for the next year. So once again, they're going to potentially vote on this tonight is what we're hearing. So let's listen in, and we'll get back to the State Department stuff as soon as we can. But we want to make sure we don't miss anything on the CMS side.
Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. Thank you. I turn to Board Member Liz Monterey Duval to make the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the 2025-2026 proposed operating budget and the capital outlay and enterprise fund budgets as outlined in the attached document entitled Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools Budget Recommendation 2025-2026.
Second.
I would like to speak on it.
Yes.
Thank you to the parents, educators, and community members who raise your voices. I hear you and I stand with you. We need to invest in our schools and we need to pay our educators what they deserve. I support the call for a 10% county supplement and advocated myself for an 8% increase in line with our legislative agenda. I've had many conversations with Dr. Hill and county commissioners. If you know anything about me, I give every vote a lot of thought and consideration. And there are many trade-offs that our asks would include, meaning higher taxes and cuts to social services to our most vulnerable in this county. Tonight, I'm supporting the superintendent's budget because it protects our priorities within the funding we know we'll have. This proposal includes a 3% raise for all staff based on state funding and a 5% average increase in teacher supplement paid by the county, and salary corrections for classified staff. It invests in extended learning, safety upgrades, technology, and over $85 million in counselors, social workers, and psychologists. But now I want to address the broader issue. Even with a 10% supplement, we'd still be lagging. North Carolina ranks 49th out of 50th in the country in public education funding. We are a wealthy state with a gross domestic product of over $625 billion, yet we collect just 5% of that in tax revenue, one of the lowest rates in the country. And it's getting worse. The state plans to eliminate corporate income tax entirely by 2030, gutting one of the few tools that we have to fund public services like education. Meanwhile, the latest Senate budget offers teachers just a 2.3% raise and a one-time bonus. That's not a raise. It's a reminder of how low we rank on their priority list, especially in a state that claims it wants to be #1 for business. How can we be #1 in business and dead last in education? I'm not a mathematician, but it doesn't add up. So let's be clear. Our state legislators are elected officials. If they're not doing their jobs, we need to vote them out. We need to primary Democrats. We need to primary Republicans. If I was underperforming in my job, I would get fired. So we need to fire them. This budget isn't perfect, but it moves us forward. And I will keep on fighting for our schools, staff, and the education that our community deserves. So thank you.
Any other comments? Board Member Klein.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and the work done by the staff, Dr. Hill, Dr. Balknight. I appreciate all the work you've done. I've asked from the beginning of this budget process for more money to be allotted for the teacher supplement and for local salaries. A 5% ask for our county commission is not enough for our teachers. And on February 1st, we approved our legislative agenda where we asked for an 8% increase for teachers from the state. But our district is only planning for a 3% increase. So why would we not consider planning for 8% with the 5% supplement plan? Are you asking me to say, oops, we made a mistake with our legislative ask? This in itself is going to make it difficult for us to go to the Legislative Assembly and ask for more money. Today, our beginning teachers earn less than $50,000 a year and top out with less than $70,000 a year with 30 years of experience. CMS cannot keep teachers in the classroom on this salary. Many of them look for positions within the district outside so that they can make more money. Parents send us their most valuable treasure, their children. And we cannot ask the county for more money. I'm disappointed in that. We need to be more competitive with our neighbors to the south of us and with Wake County. It is no wonder teachers are leaving the profession, specifically in our county. Our teachers are not paid enough. Prior to spring break, I had the opportunity to listen to 4 teachers share their concerns about teacher pay. I was moved by what they had to say and what they do daily, and I shared this with Dr. Hill. One of the teachers is in her second year and is considering leaving the profession and the state because of the lack of pay. We can't afford to do this. Our teachers deserve our support for higher supplements and higher ask. At the last board meeting, we saw teachers ask for more money. But if we, the board, don't ask, how are we going to increase those chances for the teachers? Monies have been asked for in this budget without clear, definitive answers to where they're going. I asked tonight and I asked last time about the $1 million for high-dosage tutoring. I'm still not clear on that. Finally, the budget is based on estimated county and state forecasts. I have repeatedly asked for a contingency plan, and I appreciate tonight being told that we have cut back we're holding back 65% in the Title I monies. But I'm truly concerned about the Title II and III monies. I believe that we will see substantial cuts from the federal government. It's a fact. I always have a plan A and a plan B, and I would have liked to have seen some type of an outline for a plan B. Not a whole thing, but something. In 2023, we asked our citizens to approve $2.5 billion bond initiative. Now granted, 65% of the 15.47% who voted, and that's 9%, approved it. But regardless of the number, if we have these new buildings for our students, will we have teachers in those buildings if we do not invest in them? A parent today told me she would be okay with an older school as long as her child had a qualified teacher to teach. I'm concerned about having those qualified teachers. So as a former educator and a CMS employee, I cannot support this budget that does not support our teachers. I appreciate all the work that has been done, but I have to support the teachers. Thank you.
Board Member Easley. Once again, as echoing about my board members' comments, thank you for all the work and for all the time that you put into that. It definitely is, I know it's not an easy task. But I do also believe that this proposal falls short of meeting the urgent and clearly stated needs of our educators and staff. The budget only includes a 5% increase in the local supplement for teachers and staff. That's a start, but it's not enough, especially considering we now know the state only plans to raise teacher by less than 3%, with a 4.2 increase in benefits and a half-step increase for classified staff. This means the burden falls more heavily on our local funding to make up the difference, which, let me be clear, is not something that should be happening, but these are the cards that we are dealt. This, in our legislative agenda that was approved in February, asked for an 8% increase. However, I believe we must go even further and ask the county for a 10% increase, specifically transparency allowing teacher compensation. Teachers should not be priced out of living the communities that they serve. We also heard directly from CMAE and local teachers about the priorities that are not reflected in this budget. First, we must continue to provide the highest teacher supplement in the state, with particular attention to veteran teachers and those with more than 15 years of experience, who often do not receive reliable incremental raises at the state scale. Second, a call from CMAE to issue a flat rate inclement weather pay policy for non-essential classified staff. No employee should lose income because they could not report to work during hazardous weather. Fair compensation in these situations is both reasonable and just, yet not reflected in this budget. And finally, I continue to push for a stronger investment in non-sport activities and enrichment programs. Foreign language, fine arts, speech and debate, academic clubs. These are not nice-to-have programs. These are the very tools that help drive student engagement and academic success across the board. And I'm hearing across the county that these types of positions are the first to be eliminated. We have said this over and over again, that the best way to improve student outcomes is to have a qualified teacher in every classroom. This budget needs to cut more of those extra programs and focus on retaining and recruiting qualified teachers to make sure that every student has that qualified teacher in the classroom.
Any other comments? Vice Chair Rankin?
Thank you for the recommendation. Thank you to staff for all your hard work over the last few months for putting this budget together and bringing us all the information that we need to get us to the point where we are now. I believe in holding individuals accountable, and the individuals we should be holding accountable are the individuals that sit in Raleigh, the General Assembly. Just to be clear, the responsibility to fund education falls on the state. There is a program that's being pushed to fund vouchers that feed into the private school sector that has $600 million that individuals would rather fund versus giving it to the public schools. So our tax dollars would go to individuals that we can't even hold accountable in the private school sector. And to say that individuals cannot fund public education is just wrong. I do appreciate our county commission for stepping in and providing a supplement and minimizing that gap that the state is not funding us. In addition to the $600 million that's going to private schools, there's also a state supplement that's not being provided to 4 counties or 4 school systems, and we're one of them, that can additionally provide more funding towards our teachers. I trust that, I know that, Dr. Hill and her team, I know Dr. Hill has done her due diligence, and I'm sure she's worked closely with the county manager to understand where we are and to find the best fit to find the most beneficial budget that we can arrive to. Because we know that, the reality is that there's a shortfall everywhere. And without increasing taxes, putting more burden on the members of Mecklenburg County, I appreciate the effort that's been put in place. So I do support this, and I think that we'll continue to work and hold individuals accountable to fund public education. Thank you.
Board Member Nunn?
I'm just going to say I'm deeply disappointed, not in this budget and for a few reasons. I'm deeply disappointed in the state. And while I do think the state, we've got a legislative agenda, we are asking them to invest further. We represent this county, which is only 10% of the state. However, when I look at our ask to our county commission and locally, we are 100% of their constituents. We're 100% of those taxpayers. And I think the reality is our teachers don't earn a living wage in this county. And while we can point fingers and blame, regardless, that still exists. And either we have to do something about it or we just continue to be in the same cycle. So why I'm disappointed the most is the people that can do stuff, the people that do, take 100% of our local tax funds could invest more. I know it's a responsibility really at the state level and it's governed by our Constitution, but the reality is these are our kids. These are my kids, these are your kids, they are everybody's grandkids, they're your neighbors, they're whatever. The teachers that are in those classrooms are shaping our next generation. And most of them can't afford to live in this county, or they have a second job or something else. So I'm disappointed because I think we should ask for more, even if we can't get more. But the number one thing I have heard from people in this county, and it was on the county survey, is the number one thing to them is investing in education. And yes, we're investing in schools. And to be quite frank, I am worried that we're going to have all these nice schools, but not enough teachers to actually teach our children. So I get North Carolina is decreasing their tax base. I get we potentially don't want to raise taxes, but we have to do something locally. And I'm asking a call to action for the residents of this county to talk not only to the state, but also to the county to figure out how do we do better for our children in Mecklenburg County.
Any other comments on this end? Board membership?
Yes. I do think that in this budget, and I want to thank the superintendent and her staff for the work, because I do think they put people excellence first. I think we all know someone who's been a former teacher, an administrator. I worked in central office and a principal in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. I know what hard work means, and I know what's going on right now in terms of retention and recruitment of teachers. And yes, pay is the biggest factor, but I do continue to believe someone who sits on the North Carolina School Board Association and get to hear school districts throughout the state, that this is a state-level issue. We must continue to advocate with our Mecklenburg delegation and our entire delegation to talk about, is education the key to unlock the door to what happens for all of our children everywhere in this county and in this city? And how can we talk about education? How can we talk about it without talking about teacher pay? We have always done more with less. And is that any different today? Are we always expected to do more with less? It will not continue to happen with what we're seeing today. And I do think, as Board Member Nunn was saying, we must talk about tax revenue. We must talk about education in the city and the county. Do we believe that education is the most important factor and the key to what happens in Mecklenburg County, in this state? And if so, we have to keep asking the question, what will we do about it? And it's important that we act. But I do feel we have done what we can at the local level in terms of CMS. And so I do approve this recommendation, and I do believe we have to continue to advocate and fight in the areas where it makes the most sense, state and county.
Dr. Witherspoon?
Thank you. I just want to first thank fellow colleagues, board members, for your collaboration. I think we all are right. And there's a lot of work to do. And obviously this does not reflect the perfect vision of what we would like. It's not perfect at all. And there's a lot of work to do in the future. And I think that with our minds together, when we put our minds together, we can get to that place, even locally. I want to thank our superintendent, her staff, for your diligence, your hard work. We put our minds together over the past several months. I want to thank our local funding partners as well, county commissioners, for your diligence and your support. And I truly believe that all of us are invested in our children in Mecklenburg County. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Before we take the vote, I think I have a final comment. I want to thank Dr. Hill and his staff. Particularly want to thank board colleagues for all their input over many hours of meetings in talking about what is needed for Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, which is made up of our students. Investment in public education is not a partisan issue. It's about ensuring that every child has access to a sound basic education. So for me, it doesn't matter if you have a D or R behind your name. However, I do think we have to pay close attention to the actions. Some actions by our elected officials are overt and loud regarding how they feel about supporting public education and the funding of it. But there are other actions that are microaggressive decisions, making decisions that making decisions that is death by 1,000 cuts that ends our public education system through microaggressions. North Carolina ranks 48th in funding for public education, yet third in the ability to pay. Over the next decade, we will divert $6.5 billion, with a B, dollars to voucher programs. despite the fact that a majority of the children in Mecklenburg County and throughout the state attend traditional public schools. 60% of the money that has been claimed in these voucher programs already are for families earning over $115,000 a year. 74% of those claiming vouchers are white, and which is up from 61% last year. The General Assembly is holding hostage over $5 billion in Leandro funding, which would include approximately $250 million coming to CMS schools. For the past 2 years, the county has fully funded our 5% teacher supplement request, and these are discretionary funds. We are making this request yet again with an expansion of $28 million, even with the understanding that the county is in a $14 million deficit. And we should ask for this money because teachers deserve it. But we must not do is absolve the General Assembly of its responsibility. Now let's put this in perspective. In the years 2023 and 24, approximately 19,000 teachers have left the profession across the state. Teachers deserve more. The state Senate has proposed a measly 2.3% for 25-26 school year. Teachers deserve more than that. To be able to afford a one-bedroom apartment in Charlotte, a teacher would need to earn $61,000. Our beginning teachers are at $48,000. I want to put something in perspective. To get our beginning teachers in the space that they would be able to afford that, the supplement we would have to ask from the county would be 111%. 111%. So we cannot supplement our way out of this. And this is on top of phasing out our corporate taxes down to zero in 2030. We have the numbers, we have the facts, and we know the reality where we are. The reality is that we, the residents of the state, including Mecklenburg County, have already, remember the $6.5 billion and the $250 million I mentioned? We have already paid for increased funding for education and teacher raises. We've already paid for it. That money needs to come to our districts immediately. We have to work with we need to put the pressure on our General Assembly. They are holding money that is holding us back. Again, 111% supplement would have to be the ask to get our beginning teachers to be able to afford a one-bedroom apartment. This is so much greater than a Mecklenburg County issue. And with that being said, I now call for the question. Unless there's further discussion. All right, so all those in favor to approve Superintendent's 2025-26 budget recommendation by show of hands. All opposed? Madam Clerk, that's 5-3. Motion carries. Without there being any further business, the meeting is adjourned.
So you heard there, folks, here, CMS meeting concluding with the passage of the Superintendent Crystal Hill's proposed budget for the upcoming school year. Sounded like that was a 5-3 vote. And despite some of the support that we saw, the actual voting yes in favor of this proposal, we heard various board members voicing their concerns. While the budget does have some pay raises included for teachers, including a 3% kind of across the board, plus a 5% average boost in the local teacher supplement. We did hear quite a few board members speaking out against some of what the state was providing. So keep in mind, usually the teacher pay is state plus local funding supplemented. So that is, once again, the conclusion there of that vote, 5-3, the CMS budget, roughly $1.9 billion budget passing there tonight. We'll have much more for you coming up on the news at 11 o'clock if you keep it here on WCNC+. Meantime, we do want to get back to the State Department briefing, which we've been dipping in and out of. This is a prior briefing we saw with spokesperson Tammy Bruce outlining some of the restructuring the State Department is about to undergo, including budget cuts. Let's listen back in.
Time in history. And this is what the State Department used to be able to do. It has grown, as the Secretary's statements indicated, quite bloated, unable to move, stuck in really just a bloated inability bureaucratically to make decisions or to get things done. And if decisions are made, the levels that have to be gone through extend the amount of time to where you can get a decision made. So I would say for embassies and consulates in the world itself, as they're already seeing when it comes to the way that President Trump operates, the way that Secretary Rubio operates, it's about faster results with, I think, a more nimble effort. All right. Yes, Humaira.
Thank you, Tammy. So in the reorg, we see that the Undersecretary for Civilian Security, Democracy, Human Rights, as known as J inside the State Department, seems to have been eliminated, and some of the bureaus under that is being brought under different undersecretaries. But for example, Office of Global Criminal Justice, which works on monitoring atrocities overseas, which cooperates with different governments on war crimes accountability, seems to be completely eliminated. So I'm wondering, this undersecretary was a place where U.S. basically did democracy and rights promotion globally. Does the new State Department under President Trump no longer sees that as a mission? Is that no longer a priority?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a legitimate question. Again, we've grown used to seeing something, and then that would indicate that's where that lives, and if that's gone, the effort is gone. You know, many times during the USAID argument, I've made that argument. Just because the USAID building was going to be something else doesn't mean, or that the certain aid was cut that was not aligned with our vision or President Trump's vision, doesn't mean that our commitment to foreign aid ended. So you're right. There are going to be certain offices and certain bureaus that are going to be gone or folded into other bureaus. I would say this is one of the most important aspects of this for everyone in the building and everyone watching at home. Because you might have had a specific bureau that dealt with a discrete issue, doesn't mean because it's now folded into another larger bureau, doesn't mean that it's gone or we don't care. It means that, in fact, certain issues deserve to be considered part, not like some specialized, separate, segregated interest. Why shouldn't that interest be in every bureau, right? If you've got bureaus that, and for people watching at home, as I mentioned, I think in my very first briefing, that the State Department isn't just a bunch of people at a desk looking at the internet and people figuring out what it is they want to say to a world leader. There's bureaus filled with people who care about the country, the State Department, and are experts, researchers, individuals who are committed to a certain region, who understand it, who have also, though, the relationships with people in the countries in that region. And then they inform us, they do the research, they inform me for this briefing. I go onto the screen, and it's every bureau in this building that has what we call lines, which is the information about what's happening on an issue. They tell me what those things are, why it matters, et cetera. So I come here, and a great deal of what I say to you, if not most, is from the body of knowledge from the people who work in this building, who are the Foreign Service officers, the career people, the career people, the civil service officers and workers who are here. So that's how this, it is the government as a whole is people. It is a collection of people who've gathered to further the founder's vision, and who with each election gather to further the vision of the person who leads this government. So when we think about the nature of USAID or those other bureaus you mentioned, if a bureau is gone, that is certainly all these issues are important. It means that we're looking at certainly blending in with the regional bureaus, taking certain issues away from being specialty issues, and making sure that they're in the frameworks of the bureaus so that they can be weaved in and dealt with as a whole within all the work. Yes, of course. Please. No, next, once we
I
get
do
through
have a
this.
follow-up on this too.
Okay, then, hold it, but I'll make sure I give it to you guys. We're good.
You said earlier that, you talked about some of the programs and you described them as, the aims of the programs were not in line with the aims of the country. Now, there are countries, like U.S. has made democracy promotion a priority, but that priority actually did not go down well with some of the countries in the world. So if a country, for example, a lot of people would give the example of Hungary, U.S. has funded some independent media organizations in Hungary. If those are in contradiction with Hungary's goals, U.S. is no longer going to do that?
No, it's not. Without, of course, speculating on what we would do in a particular country, the point is that American tax dollars that are sent as aid or to supplement something in another country deserves to be used to reflect the values and the interests of the United States, which of course is democracy and freedom around the world. I think it's safe to say that with all of our actions, certainly the Trump administration, we have made it clear that that is our priority. But also making sure that the ambassadors who are also appointed, who are representing this nation in countries and others who work at the consulates, in concert with the nation that we are working with diplomatically, that we have a coalition, if you will, on knowing how that money is being spent and making sure that the stakeholders actually have a say. I think that's fair. Some people would argue that sending money into a country, spending on something that nobody else discussed, like as USAID would do, is unfair, and that the people in the country that we're working with should have a say. But bottom line is, this now moves into something that is more accountable, more specific, easier to describe, easier to ask questions about, and easier effectively for everyone involved here at the State Department and at the embassies and consulates involved, more accessible and more transparent. All right. Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to follow up on Humera on global criminal justice, because
Sure.
there seems to be a bit of a mixed message, because on the one hand, this is clearly being eliminated from the organisational chart, but when we're pressing you on it, you're saying...
Well, it may
well,
be
these-
moved. I mean,
these roles can
things
still
if you don't see it on
can
the
be
chart,
moved.
it may be moved.
But and then the Secretary has retweeted an article which says very specifically that this is an aggressive shake-up. It will close agency offices, including those launched to further human rights, advance democracy overseas, counter extremism, and prevent war crimes. So it's just a simple question, really: is the investigation and prevention of war crimes overseas still an important piece of work and a priority for the State Department?
Democracy is always important, obviously, and again, and I understand the tendency. I understand the tendency. War crimes, again, for me, being here now, we're approaching about 100 days. My deciding to do this is based on this nation's history, and it clearly is committed to the nature of the values of the American people and of this country. And just because, and this is why I think it's difficult to do, you've seen a bureau dedicated just to that, just because it has been folded into a different bureau or is an element underneath a different kind of office, and that particular bureau that was maybe specialized, which could be implemented in a better, more nimble, faster way, especially when we're talking about war crimes and things immediately that are moving on the ground. This is the kind of adjustment and reorganization that makes it better. And this will always be the argument. This will be seen. But it is, of course, those values that you know are American values remain, And while the approach or the bureaus or an office might be called something differently or even eliminated as an office, but is moved through the bureau as a whole, you'll see that the American approach to the world not only remains the same, but will be more obvious, more clear, more dynamic, and more active.
Do you know where will that role move to? Because it's very hard to see in the chart, for example, on war crimes or global criminal justice, where that will now exist.
Well, but again, this is a roadmap. It is a plan. This is something that in this process, and there's a process in this government, where there may be certain things that change. And there'll be a point where we're talking about implementation. So those details, this gives you, I think, a very good idea, transparently for everyone who's watching this, that this is a change. It is, the issue is, certainly, sometimes we all know that change is difficult. But in this particular case, it had to happen because of the bulk, because of the unsustainability of the size of the government. And that's why we're doing it. All right. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tammy. Two questions. I know this came up on different settings. Just want to make sure.
It's the same issue.
Yes, to get you on the record that this will not impact whatsoever when it comes to the department's reports on different issues like human rights, which appears to be
well, no, I'm not going to speculate on whatsoever impact on how a report is issued, when it's issued, the content of the report, the nature of how our discussing human rights is done. I will not, all of that would require speculation here beyond, I think, the reorganization report.
And my second question, I know that I can say a spokesperson's role will be promoted, congratulations on that, but I want to understand with the GEC, closure of GEC recently.
GEC,
Global
yes.
Engagement Center.
Yes, no, that's a very good question, yeah.
And also, eliminating some of the fundings, like, grants to Moldova to fight against the Russian disinformation. Is the issue of Russian disinformation or Chinese disinformation, is this something that you are concerned about, or are you out of business of combating?
Well, it's obvious that everyone's concerned about interference in elections. None of us want that, but of course the specifics of how a reorganizational roadmap is not going to, I'm not going to be able to answer the question about how that would be affected, of course. And your other question was?
Chinese and Russian disinformation.
No, there was a different one.
And your office will be promoted?
Well, yeah, and this is, I think, again, a bit in the weeds for people at home. I mean, there's an organizational chart. My office is now answerable to the secretary, which, of course, all of you probably already presume that, if that's true. But now, technically, it sits within that umbrella. So nothing has really changed in that regard, except it's a little bit more specific and obvious when it comes to the nature of my work.
Can you come back to Mleko in Ukraine?
Well, forgive me. I'm going to move on. I was also going to answer your first question, which
GEC.
The GEC. Thank you. He remembered. In fact, that's a good question because things beyond this roadmap will also happen. That bureau has been eliminated. Things will change in the State Department separate from this roadmap. That bureau, which had been ordered to be removed last fall, what they did is they changed its name and moved people around. And so that, of course, by eliminating that bureau at $50 million a year, perfect example, that worked to censor the American public. That is not certainly the vision of the Trump administration or the American people who put him in office. So yes, that bureau is gone. It is really gone this time, and the American people are better off for it.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Yes, of course you can.
On this process.
Yes.
There's an internal State Department memo that was put out about this that said that the undersecretaries are going to be submitting a path to reduce domestic staff by 15%. Can you just help us understand how the leadership in charge of this reorg came up with the 15% number, and if there's any wiggle room there? Or
well, I said this is an internal document. I'm not going to speak on something that you may or may, I'm not going to presume you didn't see something, so forgive me. But I'm not going to speak on the specifics of something like that, but the undersecretaries do have a role here. Because this is, again, not from on high things being swept away with one of those large yard brooms. This is a very specific dynamic brought to the undersecretaries who have daily operational experience. I see you. Keep your hand down, please. I'm sorry. It's a little distracting. These are undersecretaries who are working daily with the people in this building, who work in this building, who know what's being produced, who know what has to happen, and they are best suited to make a determination when it comes to this roadmap about how to apply the nature of what we want to accomplish. So the undersecretaries are directly involved. And they will, I think they'll have about 30 days to make their own plan in this framework. And then, of course, we'll see how that manifests in the meantime.
And then just one quick question.
Sure.
Was DOGE involved at all on this plan, or was this just a State Department proposal?
No, this, I think, is a very good example of the importance. You know, we know the American people love the result of DOGE. I think there were some questions, perhaps, about how it was applied. But what we do know is that the DOGE approach, the goal of that entity and of that committee is something the President appreciated and still does, as do the American people very much. But when, I believe, the President said a few weeks ago that ultimately this was going to be an approach that the secretaries were going to begin to apply. And also that does make sense, because whether it's the secretaries or the undersecretaries or the people running the offices, it is the daily work of individuals committed to the country, making a difference for the world, and the people on the ground working together know best about how this works, what could change, and how it should change. So this is, I think, a very good example of the continuation of that mission and the value of that mission.
Okay, folks, we've been listening to State Department spokesperson, Tammy Bruce, talking about this reorganization of the State Department. We heard her in her statements just a few moments ago referring to the department as being bloated and bureaucratic. And so we're seeing some cuts announced, as well as, once again, kind of a restructuring of who's answering to whom. And so that is, once again, remarks that she gave earlier today describing and explaining some of those changes. Sounds like we do have lawmakers who are basically saying they're going to look into the changes that were announced and going to see if everything was done with care as far as the cutting. Let's go ahead and turn now to a story that just got into our Live Impact News studio this evening, and it's a statement from CMPD Chief Johnny Jennings upon the announcement of an arrest of a CMPD officer who has been charged with DUI. We are seeing here stemming from an incident from yesterday afternoon, according to CMPD. Officer Stephen Brown, they say, was arrested by the Clover Police Department in York, South Carolina. He's been charged with driving under the influence. Officer Brown, according to CMPD, was off duty at the time of this arrest. Clover Police are going to be the lead investigative agency regarding the specific incident. However, CMPD weighing in tonight saying Officer Brown is on unpaid administrative leave. They're doing an internal investigation as well. And sounds like his most recent assignment was at the Airport Division, came on the force with CMPD in October of 2006. The statement, as you can see on your screen here, coming from Chief Johnny Jennings, remarking on this arrest, saying, quote, "Wearing the badge represents a commitment to integrity, responsibility, and service. On duty or off, I take that responsibility personally and expect every member of this department to do the same. When an officer violates that trust, it is a betrayal of the profession. We will hold our own accountable." Our team has done a little bit of digging as far as what comes next after the investigations and, what comes on the criminal front. Looks like there is a court date coming up next month, May 19th, according to South Carolina court records, and this officer has since posted a bond. Looks like it was a roughly $2,000 bond. We'll keep you posted as we learn more about this case, but that is the latest there from CMPD. With that, we do want to turn to a briefing today from Secretary of Health, Food and Drug, FDA Secretary. Is this the RFK? Okay, so this was the announcement of the phasing out of the food dyes, and we'll listen in on that briefing right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm Kyle Diamanis, Deputy Commissioner for Human Foods at FDA. It's my honor and privilege to introduce to you the Commissioner of FDA, Dr. Marty Makary, a renowned surgeon, scientist, researcher, and public policy expert. Dr. McCary was confirmed as the 27th Commissioner of the FDA by a bipartisan vote of the Senate. Dr. McCary joined FDA from the Johns Hopkins University and Hospital, where he founded the Johns Hopkins Center for Surgical Trials and Outcomes Research, was named an endowed chair in the gastrointestinal surgery, and for the past 22 years has held an active clinical practice. He has authored over 300 peer-reviewed articles in medical literature, has conducted and led landmark cross-disciplinary research on a range of subjects, including obesity, cancer care, and adverse event monitoring. He is the author of a leading book on the microbiome, food policy, and other important health topics. A member of the prestigious National Academy of Medicine and the recipient of numerous honors and awards, his work has had a major and lasting impact on health policy in the field of medicine. One of the things I appreciate about Dr. McCary is that he cares deeply about people and has devoted his life to service. He was in the operating room caring for a patient the day before his Senate confirmation hearing last month. We're lucky to have him as our commissioner. He's all about helping people and driving outcomes, and today is another example of that. Please join me in welcoming FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty McCary.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner DeMontis. Good afternoon, Mr. Secretary, Dr. Bhattacharya, Governor, Speaker, the many Maha moms and the kids here supporting the effort. Thank you for being here. Thank you. That's great. Today, the FDA is taking action to remove petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply and from medications. For the last 50 years, American children have increasingly been living in a toxic soup of synthetic chemicals. The scientific community has conducted a number of studies raising concerns about the correlation between petroleum-based synthetic dyes and several health conditions, such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obesity, diabetes, insulin resistance, cancer, genomic disruption, GI issues, as I've seen in the hospital, and allergic reactions. For example, this Lancet study conducted a randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled study on food dyes and concluded that artificial colors in the diet, quote, result in increased hyperactivity. So why are we taking a gamble? Parents, moms and dads, have also tried to raise attention to the issue. Some parents have observed that these chemicals cause hyperactivity and even aggressive behavior, and that it subsides when the chemicals are removed from the diet of the child, and sometimes even reoccurs when those petroleum-based chemical dyes are reintroduced. As I know from my experience taking care of children as a doctor, you have to always listen to the mom. Other studies have found that artificial colors that create vibrant colors mess with the child's developing brain to make ultra-processed foods more attractive, even when the child already feels full. These studies have associated food colors directly with obesity and diabetes. Well, America's children are sick and suffering. 41% of children have at least one health condition, and 1 in 5 are on medication. The answer is not more Ozempic, more ADHD medication, and more antidepressants. There's a role for those medications, but we have to look at underlying root causes. The F in FDA stands for food. Now, there's no one ingredient that accounts for the child chronic disease epidemic. And let's be honest, taking petroleum-based food dyes out of the food supply is not a silver bullet that will instantly make America's children healthy. But it is one important step. This administration is not interested in continuing down the path of doing the same old things as we watch our nation's children get sicker. We need fresh, new approaches. Cancer and diabetes in young people is going up at an alarming rate, and nobody seems to know why. We have to turn our attention to underlying causes such as chemicals and toxins that children are exposed to, not just more insulin and chemotherapy. And let's not forget that the best way to lower drug prices is to stop taking drugs we don't need. 30 states concerned about this very issue have introduced bills or laws with a patchwork of standards for food companies. So the food industry, which has many good people, has asked for clarity. So today the FDA is taking the following steps. Number one, establishing a national standard and timeline for the food industry to transition from petroleum-based food dyes to natural alternatives. Number two, initiating a process to revoke authorization of synthetic food colorings, including those not in production, namely citrus red number 2 and orange B, within the coming weeks. Number three, taking steps to eliminate the remaining 6 synthetic dyes on the market from the U.S. food supply, specifically red dye number 40, yellow dye number 5, yellow dye number 6, blue dye number 1, blue dye number 2, and green dye number 3 by the end of next year. We are also requesting food companies to remove red dye number 3 sooner than the 2027-2028 deadline previously announced. These steps that we are taking means that the FDA is effectively removing all petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply. For companies that are currently using petroleum-based red dye, try watermelon juice. Or beet juice. For companies currently combining petroleum-based yellow chemical and red dyes together, try carrot juice. The FDA is also announcing plans today to authorize 4 additional natural color additives using natural ingredients in the coming weeks, while also accelerating the review and approval of other natural ingredient colors. I want to take a moment to thank America's food manufacturers. Many have been extremely cooperative. There are many good people in food manufacturing delivering on the needs of the American public, and they have done exactly what we have asked them to do. 100 years ago, we asked them to focus on mass food production to solve food insecurity. Now, given our child chronic disease epidemic and enormous suffering and cost that has ensued, we have to come together to address the new problem. That's right, we have to come together. If we can get beyond the tribalism in our society, rampant in our culture, we will realize that we all want the same things. Republican, Democrat, and independent moms showed up in high numbers to vote for President Trump on this very issue that Secretary Kennedy has championed. Moms across America have spoken, and they want more honesty and humility from our nation's healthcare leaders. And if we're being honest, ADHD is not a genetic problem, and our obesity epidemic is not a willpower problem. It's something that adults have done to children. I was reading a New England Journal of Medicine article recently, came out in January, referring to the chronic disease epidemic in children, specifically infertility, diabetes, obesity, attention deficit disorder, and many other health problems. And it referred to that group of problems with an interesting term. It called them non-communicable diseases of children. Non-communicable diseases. Well, actually, they are communicable. But kids are not getting these diseases from viruses or bacteria. They're getting them from using their phones and ultra-processed foods and chemicals and toxins that we have introduced into their world. Gandhi once said, the true mark of a society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members, including children. Secretary Kennedy has said that he would instruct the FDA to examine concerning ingredients in the nation's food supply, and today we are delivering on that promise. To be clear, the transition from petroleum-based food dyes to natural ingredient food dyes will not increase food prices. We know that from other countries that have already made the transition. It's not an opinion. Today's announcement fulfills the administration's promise to use both gold standard science and common sense. For the last 50 years, we have been running one of the largest uncontrolled scientific experiments in the world on our nation's children without their consent. And today, we are removing these petroleum-based chemicals from their food supply. In summary, we are simply asking American food companies to replace petroleum-based food dyes with natural ingredients for American children, just as they already do for children in other countries. American children deserve good health. Thank you.
Well, we just heard there from FDA Commissioner Martin Makary talking about this effort underway to phase out artificial dyes from this food supply by the end of next year. And so this is going to give the food industry about 2 years to make this transition from petroleum-based synthetic dyes to natural alternatives. So we saw him holding up the carrot juice, talking about using that to make things orange instead. We'll continue to listen in here on Live Impact News to this update. Once again, this is from the FDA, and we eventually will hear from Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, Jr.
Dr. Marty Makary, thank you, Secretary Kennedy, and everyone here at HHS that has made this swift action possible. Today marks the beginning of restoring the trust at the FDA and our regulatory institutions. Last September, I testified at the U.S. Senate about the blatant hypocrisy of American food companies selling safer products in other countries while selling inferior versions of the same exact products here in the United States with artificial food dyes made from petroleum. The outrage of American companies doing this spawned a massive grassroots movement to hold these companies accountable. 1,000 concerned citizens, moms, children, elected officials, health leaders from across the nation gathered in Battle Creek, Michigan last fall asking Kellogg's to remove the dyes they don't use in other countries. We had over 400,000 petition signatures to deliver to their headquarters, but they gave us the cold shoulder. They told us to get off their lawn. Secretary Kennedy took our unheard voices to the campaign trail and elevated them all the way up to President Trump. From the moment my kids were born, I have taught them the truth about artificial food dyes because our government was doing nothing to protect them from these harmful ingredients. Now we are entering a new era, an era where we don't need to worry about artificial food dyes on the frosting of a birthday cake, the breakfast cereals served at schools, our children's Halloween bucket or Easter basket, the chips and the sports drinks being served after a game. This was the effort of so many incredible people, many of whom are in this room today. Thank you. Thank you for being loud. Thank you for coming together with me on this issue. Because you made your voices heard, we now have made history together. And now we have intellectual honesty coming out of the FDA, focused on looking at updated science on food additives that American food companies are not using in other countries. This is a win for every American who doesn't know the truth about the food industry. For all the mothers, the fathers, the doctors, and the teachers out there struggling for answers on our children's health problems when they can be solved with food. Because you know what? Food is medicine. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, Commissioner McCary, Governor Morrissey, and the rest of the crew here to fight the good fight. And I was reflecting on a friend of mine who was a pediatrician who once said that if a foreign nation was doing to our children what we are doing in America, we'd go to war to protect them. And I think we don't need to do that anymore because we have a champion in Secretary Kennedy and Commissioner McCary to really make a change that we need in America. I'm Dr. Mark Hyman. I'm a practicing physician. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and not HHS. I'm a lifelong advocate for addressing chronic disease through food. And I'm here today because our food system, specifically our regulatory system for food additives and dyes, is failing to protect the health of the American people, especially our children. Every day, Americans consume thousands of chemicals in our food, many of which have never been independently tested for long-term safety. Artificial dyes like Red 40 and Yellow 5, emulsifiers, preservatives, and so-called natural flavors have been linked in studies, many studies, to behavioral issues, to metabolic dysfunction, to inflammation in the body. And these aren't just theoretical risks. We're seeing rising rates of chronic diseases linked to food dyes and other additives like ADHD, obesity, autoimmune diseases, allergies, endocrine disruption, and even cancer. The highest levels of scientific evidence shows that these food dyes cause increased hyperactivity, reduced attention span, irritability, sleep disturbances in both children with and without pre-existing behavioral disorders. Now, these effects can occur at doses within the range of typical consumption for many kids, which is often in the many milligram doses. Is it any wonder that there's been a 1,000% increase in ADHD since 1970? 1,000%. No parent should have to guess whether the food they're giving their child contains substances banned in Europe but allowed here. No doctor should watch their patients struggle with chronic illness tied to ultra-processed food and be powerless to change it because our food policies lag decades behind the science. It's time, and it is time, it's happening, that the FDA and HHS is demanding full transparency, independent review, and science-based safety standards for every substance added to our food. Americans deserve a food system that protects their health and not corporate interests. Thank you.
My name is Callie Means. I'm a special government employee at the White House. And if you look around the building here, this building is the home to the largest department in the U.S. government, the largest budget for any department of any government in the history of human civilization is this building. And 90% of that spending is because we are poisoning our population with chronic disease. 90% of the spending from this building, and the spending from this building is 5 times what it is in Spain per capita, 4 times what it is in Italy. It is because we are poisoning our children. And 2 words are ringing out around the world from this building today, and those 2 words are common sense. I have had countless meetings with the food industry. They've talked to the media about this. They lecture us about not being scientifically rigorous on these policies with food dyes. Well, let's think about what that study would actually entail. A peer-reviewed, placebo-controlled study would involve giving these children shots of crude oil every single day for years and seeing what happens. When a study itself that the industry is telling us to do is on its face unethical, we clearly have a problem. This is also a day where the cries and the shouts and the applause from Maha moms during the campaign are ringing out across the country. Look at what we have here today. We have people like Dr. Mark Hyman who've been fighting this and talking about the real science for decades. We have Vani Hari, who's been advocating, shouting into the darkness for years on this issue. We have Maha moms, we have children. They gave President Trump and Secretary Kennedy a sword during this campaign. Secretary Kennedy and President Trump are walking with the Maha moms behind them. And what's happening today, and I have a plea for the media, let's not cover this cynically. This is a major win. This is a major win among grassroots forces against special interests. These are things, as you know, the industry has been fighting for years and years and years. These are things that a year or 2 years ago would have been absolutely out of the question to ever have happened. This is a major, major win. And I have a plea also, quite candidly, for Democrats. I've met with Cory Booker. I've met with a lot of people that care about this issue. Where are you? Come to HHS, come to the FDA, and work with this administration on these unimpeachable issues. This is our children's lives at stake. We are poisoning our children. This is a monumental day of turning the tides in this country. And I just want to introduce the Speaker of the Utah House and recognize the incredible state leadership, 25 states around the country, inspired by Secretary Kennedy, inspired by President Trump, who've passed Maha bills and given the leverage for the federal government to be here today. So I want to introduce Speaker Mike Schultz.
Good afternoon. I'd like to start by giving a shout out to my colleagues in the Utah House of Representatives and the Utah Senate, 10 of which came to be here with us today. Thank you. Because you see, real change doesn't happen easy. It happens because people are willing to do the hard things, to make the tough calls, and to put our kids first, and Americans first. Whether it's banning soda from SNAP purchases, or getting ultra-processed foods out of our school lunches, or removing fluoride from our drinking water, Utah leads and Utah has taken action. This year, we passed a ban on dangerous chemicals and synthetic dyes in school lunches. In fact, one of our largest school districts has been doing this for 3 years already, showing that we can.
Once again, folks, live Impact News on WCNC Plus, listening in on this earlier announcement today of the phasing out of artificial food dyes in preference of natural dyes. This was an announcement from Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who spoke a little bit later in this briefing here, but we've just heard from folks with the FDA, amongst other people who are speaking in favor of this measure. And so, once again, as we mentioned, end of next year is when those artificial food dyes will have to be phased out. As our time here on Live Impact News is starting to come to a close, we did want to take you now to live images we're seeing at this very moment of St. Peter's Square, Vatican City. And keep in mind, it's 3 o'clock in the morning there, local time, but we expect that this will become much busier in just a couple of hours, as we know that Pope Francis's body is set to be transferred tomorrow morning to St. Peter's Basilica. So right there, that large building right in front of the square that we're seeing here live right now. This will be an effort to let the faithful, the worshipers, pay respects to the late Pope ahead of his funeral Saturday. So we did learn just today that that funeral will be held Saturday. And this is part of the 9-day mourning period called Novena Dialis, where we will expect to see folks from around the globe paying tribute to Pope Francis. And then eventually, as we've discussed, the conclave will start to take place. That will be the selection of the next pope. And if you're interested on how some of that works, actually our Verify reporter Megan Bragg did some reporting on that, looking into not only what conclave is, but also the representatives, the College of Cardinals, and who will actually be voting, because we know that there's some rules. You can't be over the age of 80 and cast your vote here. So she looked at whether there would be any U.S.-based cardinals, anyone from the Carolinas. You can find that reporting on our website, WCNC.com, by the way.